YouTubers, Hankster here, and welcome to another movie review. And in light of the live-action Hobbit movie premiering this past weekend, I'm going to do my review of the original animated Hobbit movie that came out in the late 1970s. Don't totally have a listing of the actors and participants of the original movie. Of course, this movie was released by Rankin Bass, the same people who, of course, did all those wonderful Christmas and holiday specials and movies for over almost 30 years, 20 to 30 years. And also the same people who were behind the original Thundercats and Silverhawks television series in the 1980s. Basically, speaking of which, if you basically look at Rankin Bass's work in both The Hobbit and Return of the King, it pretty much gives you, basically, is comparable to the Thundercats, being that the Thundercats exist on a planet called Third Earth, and a lot of elements there kind of resemble Middle Earth from the Hobbit and Return of the King movies. This, of course, is the entire story of The Hobbit. This is not broken down into separate stories like the live-action movie is going to be doing. Basically, I gotta say that the animation in this movie is really top-notch. It's really good work. Major example of animation work from Rankin Bass. How they've improved from just doing their little, still life animations and stuff. This was basically really serious work, by the way. And of course, Rankin Bass also added a lot of musical themes in this movie. There was a lot of songs in this movie, as you know, not to be expected from from J.R. Tolkien. They just kind of help with the flow of the story, and sort of like not just background music, but songs that kind of fit the specific scenes in the movie. Now, of course, if you don't know, and I don't know how, this basically tells the story of Bilbo Baggins. He, of course, is enlisted by a group of 13 dwarves and the wizard Gandalf to go to the Misty Mountains to free their kingdom from the horrible dragon known as Smaug. Smaug is, of course, S-M-A-U-G-E, I think. It's not smog in the sense of smog like in Los Angeles or anything, smog. It's kind of, the spelling's a little bit different. And then on their way, they, of course, encounter trolls and giant spiders and elves and humans and stuff, and there's a lot of action and scary stuff in the story. It's nothing really gory. Even there's a few death scenes in the movie, but it's not in the sense of real gore. It's usually kind of mystical death in some scenes. Of course, we're also introduced to the character Gollum for the first time, and of course the ring, which Bilbo finds in the story, of course, becomes a more major part of the Middle Earth storyline in the Lord of the Rings series. But this is where basically tells how Bilbo finds the ring in the first place. Basically, it is a movie. It's, I think, not really sure how. I don't know if it's about like an hour long or so, maybe a little more, maybe an hour or hour and a half movie. But it's pretty good. Kind of something to compare. Get you kind of interested in the live action movie. Kind of get you a preview of what you can expect in the live action movie. Of course, how probably they're going to extend the storyline so basically they're going to try to do 3 movies based on one book. Go figure. But all along, it's a pretty good collectible item. Get you ready for the live action stuff and all that. And of course, next we're going to be going into the second Tolkien-based animated movie. This is going to be the Lord of the Rings animated movie. Of course, oddly enough, Rankin Bass did not do any material for the first 2 books of Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, or the Two Towers. Oddly enough, I don't know, but this was a different animated group that took over for those 2 storylines for one movie, and we'll be getting to that into the next movie review, which will be coming up shortly. And stay tuned here for more reviews, whatnot, and wizardry here on the Multiverse. See ya. Hey YouTubers, Hankster here, and welcome to part 2 of our J.R. Tolkien based movie review series, and we're now going to go into the animated version of The Lord of the Rings. And now, of course, this particular movie encompasses both Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers. Basically, this is, of course, set in many years after the adventures of the Hobbit, and tells of course, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, the live-action movies, is basically the same plot line in this movie for the first 2 books. Oddly enough, they did not enlist whoever was in charge of giving out permission to do this movie, did not go to Rankin Bass to do this movie. They went to another animated group for this production. But it was pretty good animation, not as good as Rankin Bass. Basically, a good portion of the movie was basically live action material with, redone with recolored animation around it. So mostly distant scenes, battle scenes, scenes with orcs and stuff. Were basically just live action filmed, and it is just recolored it to match the animation in the movie. Which, I don't know, it was okay, but some of it I think it was kind of haphazard and sloppy, especially when it came to the orcs, the monsters in this movie. It's like they just they just grabbed a whole bunch of masks from a cheap bin in Halloween and put them on, and said, a lot of gorilla masks and stuff were used to play. It was different kind of orcs, and some of it's pretty freaky characters. Some of them look like gorillas, some of them look like sand people from Star Wars, the Tusken Raiders, and all. Some of the animation kind of makes you think of sort of a lower grade version of stuff you'd see in the heavy metal animated movies. Of course, this was the late 70s, so not as good as Rankin Bass. It was still pretty good, but and I don't know. It was a pretty good story. I would have rather had Rankin Bass involved with this movie. He just had a free flowing, so everything be connected, rather than just having Rankin Bass do one movie, then another company doing this movie, and then Rankin Bass comes back to do the final movie. It's okay on its own, but you got to get some continuity going here with who does the animation. But still a pretty good movie to add to your collection of, Lord of the Rings animated material. That's just based on my opinion. I'd rather have had Rankin Bass do this than whoever did this material. And we're going to get on to the final review of our J.R.R. Tolkien-based animation movies for review. And stay tuned here for more reviews, whatnot, and wizardry here on the Multiverse. See ya. Hey YouTubers, Hankster here, and welcome to our final review involving basically J.R.R. Tolkien material. And this is going to be the final animated version of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This is, of course, from the final book, The Return of the King. Now, of course, as you know, as you've been hearing from my previous reviews, Rankin Bass did return to do this production. A couple of the actors from the original Hobbit movie returned. The actor who played Gandalf and the actor who played Frodo Bilbo returned also. Of course, he had to make himself sound older because this is, of course, many years in the future from his time in The Hobbit. Also. By the way, dang, I forgot the name of the actor who plays Gandalf, but you might recognize him. He does a lot of good, and he was in the Bible. He played Noah in the Bible. He also played the lawgiver ape orangutan character in the final original. This was a Battle for the Planet of the Apes he was in. He was in sort of the prologue and the epilogue of that movie. But it's the same actor who plays him. I just forgot what his name is. He was really big back then. Also, but there's one actor I do want to point out. Roddy McDowall is also in this movie. He, of course, plays Samwell Gamgee, Frodo's sidekick and best friend in this adventure. Roddy McDowall, who obviously, I guess, being that they both worked together in the Planet of the Apes, they kind of worked together again in this movie. As you know, this is, of course, based on the final book, how the ring is finally destroyed and Middle-earth is free from the grip of Sauron and all. Also, of course, as you know, it brings this, being it's Rankin Bass doing this movie again. There's a lot more musical elements. There's an ongoing theme. It's called Frodo of the Nine Fingers. This is sort of kind of done in the through the words of a minstrel. That is there to tell the story in front of the good guys at the. It's basically supposed to be the end of the story, but they're and he just tells that part of the story of the Return of the King at this part of the storyline. But it's not too bad. I'm glad that they got back to Rankin Bass by this point. As far as I know, I don't know why they just did it like this. They just should have did the whole Lord of the Rings by Rankin Bass. I don't know why they chopped it up like this, but go figure. But it gets back to that really good art. Animation, that the characters look good. The orcs, of course, if you know, they do explain that, so why do the orcs look like the goblins from, well, basically, if you don't know, the orcs are goblins. They're just, they get, during the time period, during changing in time and everything, people just started calling them orcs rather than goblins. So, that's an explanation that they kind of give in this animated movie and all. Of course, also the same actor who played Gollum from The Hobbit is also back at playing the same character in this production. But, I gotta say, it's a pretty good movie. You should check it out. It's, of course, obviously out on DVD, I believe, as much as the other two animated movies. Get you, obviously, if you've ever seen the live action stuff, you can just compare. It's just a shorter amount of time. Watch this. It's not like hours and hours and hours like you see with the live action stuff. This is just, probably within a span of 3 to 4 hours, maybe a little more or less time period just to watch these three animated productions. But, it's not too bad. And, so it's just to go watch these things, check these out, and, make your own decisions. And hope you enjoyed my little reviews involving Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movie. Of course, sooner or later I will be able to do my review of the live-action Hobbit movie, Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey, which is now out in theaters. Probably going to be the #1 movie of the weekend. We'll have to see. And stay tuned here for more reviews, whatnot, wizardry, and the holidays here on the Multiverse. See ya.
Fucking